My face was still throbbing from the blow when my dad pointed toward the front door, shouting that I was tearing this family apart. My sister Chloe sat on the sofa with a triumphant smirk, completely convinced her $94,000 debt was about to become my problem. But as my mom's phone began to ring on the coffee table, the color completely drained from Chloe's face. They thought they were throwing me out to protect their golden child, but that single phone call was about to destroy her entire life. My name is David Vance. If you had asked me a few years ago what mattered most in this world, I would have told you it was family. No hesitation. No doubts. I am a 26-year-old freelance software engineer, and for the last 4 years, my life has been defined by one thing: grinding. We are talking 80-hour weeks, staring at glowing lines of code until my eyes bled, skipping weekends, and living off black coffee and takeout. I didn't do it because I was greedy. I did it because I wanted to build a stable life, not just for myself, but for the people I loved. Growing up, my parents hammered a specific philosophy into my head. Family comes before everything else. It sounded noble. It sounded like the kind of principle that builds a fortress around a home. But what they actually meant, and what took me over 2 decades to fully realize, was that my job was to be the fortress, while everyone else got to live comfortably inside it without laying a single brick. I was the eldest child, the dependable one, the anchor. And because I could handle the pressure, they just kept piling it on. My sister, Chloe, was the exact opposite. She was the golden child who could do no wrong. If Chloe made a mistake, it was because she was young and finding herself. If I made a mistake, it was a character flaw. I tolerated the blatant favoritism for years. I swallowed my pride when my achievements were met with a shrug, while Chloe getting a basic part-time retail job was treated like a historic milestone. I kept telling myself that if I just worked a little harder, if I became successful enough, and if I remained completely selfless, I would finally earn the respect and love I so desperately wanted from them. I thought being the provider meant I was valued. I didn't realize I was just being fattened up for the slaughter. Being the dependable anchor meant that whenever Chloe hit a self-inflicted rough patch, my phone would ring. Over the past 3 years alone, I loaned her over $12,000. It always started with a frantic, tearful text. "David, my car transmission blew. I can't get to work." Or, "David, I'm short on rent. My landlord is threatening to evict me." Because I had the money, and because my parents would immediately back her up by saying, "She's your sister, David. You have to help her," I transferred the funds every single time. But Chloe never paid back a single dime. And the worst part, a week after begging me for rent money, she would post photos on Instagram holding a new designer bag, sipping mimosas at a luxury weekend resort, or partying at a public graduation celebration with her friends. When I brought it up, my mom would wave her hand and say, "Oh, Chloe is just trying to build her brand, David. She needs to look successful to be successful. Don't be so stingy." My generosity didn't stop with Chloe. 2 years ago, my dad lost his management job. Instead of letting them panic, I stepped up. I took over their $800 monthly mortgage payments completely. I put my own dreams on hold. I gave up the apartment I had been saving to buy, remaining in my small rented workspace just to ensure my parents kept a roof over their heads. I did all of this while Chloe lived completely rent-free in their house, working her part-time retail job maybe 15 hours a week just to fund her aesthetic lifestyle. I was burning my own life to the ground to keep them warm. I kept telling myself that it was a temporary sacrifice, that my family appreciated the fact that my hard work was keeping us afloat. I was a giver surrounded by professional takers, and because I never set a boundary, they genuinely believed they were entitled to everything I owned. They viewed my bank account as a shared family asset and my silence as absolute submission. I was blind to the sheer scale of their parasite mindset until the day they decided to completely destroy me. The trap was sprung on a Tuesday evening. My mom called me, her voice trembling with an artificial panic that instantly set off alarm bells in my head. She told me there was an urgent family emergency and that I needed to come over to the house immediately. I dropped my work, drove across town, and walked into a living room that felt like an interrogation chamber. My mom was pacing the floor, My dad was sitting stiffly in his armchair, and Chloe was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. My mom didn't waste time on pleasantries. She sat me down and dropped a massive, catastrophic bombshell. Chloe had managed to accumulate $94,000 in high-interest personal debt. $94,000. Apparently, her part-time retail job and my constant handouts weren't enough to fund her delusions of grandeur as a lifestyle influencer. She had gone to a private commercial lending agency, taken out massive loans to buy designer clothes, lease a luxury vehicle, and pay for premium aesthetic content creation, and now the bills were due. The lenders were threatening immediate legal action and asset seizure. "So," my mom said, looking at me with completely straight face, "you need to pay this off for her. Today. Transfer the $94,000 to Chloe's account so we can clear this up." I sat there, stunned. "Are you insane?" I asked, my voice rising. $94,000? I don't have that kind of money just sitting around to throw away on Chloe's vanity. I've been working myself to the bone, and she wasted a fortune on clothes and trips. The answer is no, absolutely not. The moment the word no left my mouth, the room erupted. My mom flew across the room, her face twisted in pure, unadulterated rage. Before I could even react, she swung her hand and punched me across the face so hard that my head snapped back and I stumbled heavily into the drywall. The pain flared instantly through my jaw. I looked at my dad, expecting him to step in, but he stood up and pointed an angry, trembling finger at my chest. "Don't you dare look at us like that," he roared, completely defending the assault. "You are a selfish, ungrateful monster. You are tearing this family apart over a few dollars. Your sister's future is on the line." He stepped closer, his voice booming through the house. "If you don't pay her debt, get out of this house. You are no son of mine." I wiped a smear of blood from my lip and looked over at the sofa. Chloe wasn't crying. She wasn't guilty. She just sat there, looking at my bruised face, smiling a smug, vindictive smile. She honestly believed she had won. Standing there in that suffocating living room, pressing the back of my hand against my throbbing jaw, something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud, explosive break. It was a cold, quiet fracture. I looked at the absolute hatred burning in my parents' eyes. I looked at my dad, who was actively protecting the woman who had just assaulted me. And finally, I looked back at Chloe, whose eyes danced with a sickening satisfaction as she watched her protector pack up my life for me. In that exact moment, the blinding sadness and the desperate desire to be loved completely died. A profound, icy clarity took its place. I realized that my devotion hadn't been an anchor for this family, it had been an enabling mechanism for a group of predators. They didn't love me, they loved my utility, they loved what they could extract from me, and the second the pipeline stopped, they were entirely willing to cast me out into the cold. I stopped trembling. I lowered my hand from my face and felt my posture straighten. The pain in my jaw was still there, but it didn't hurt anymore. It felt like a reminder. I wiped the trace of blood onto my jeans and looked at the three of them with a expressionless face. I realized being the family savior was a sucker's game, and I was done playing it. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. Instead, I was going to let the massive weight of Chloe's secret choices crush every single person in this room. The silence was broken by the sharp, persistent ring of my mom's phone on the coffee table. "Answer it," my dad snapped at her, his eyes still locked on me. "Then we are throwing this selfish brat out." My mom glanced at the screen, her scowl instantly morphing into a desperate, eager grin. "It's Mr. Davis," she whispered excitedly to Chloe, "the private bank manager." She hit speakerphone, clearly expecting to show off how my money was going to save the day. "Hello, Mr. Davis. We are just settling the matters right now. We'll have the first massive payment transferred by tomorrow morning." "Mrs. Vance," the voice on the line was ice cold, "I am calling to inform you that the extension request has been officially denied. Furthermore, we have flagged the collateral documents submitted for the $94,000 loan." The smug smile on Chloe's face vanished in a fraction of a second. "What do you mean flagged?" my mom asked, her voice faltering. "A fraud alert was triggered 2 hours ago," Mr. Davis replied. The cosigner's signature on the deed used to secure the loan belongs to your eldest child. However, we received an official fraud affidavit stating they never signed it. We have already cross-referenced the digital signatures, and it appears the document was forged. The room went dead silent. My dad slowly turned his head to look at Chloe, whose face had gone entirely pale. She was suddenly sweating, her eyes darting toward the door. You see, 2 hours before coming here, I had received a notification about a suspicious credit inquiry. I didn't panic. I went straight to the police station with my records and filed a full report for grand larceny and identity theft. I knew exactly who had done it. Mr. Davis, I spoke up, stepping closer to the phone. I am the eldest child, David Vance. I never signed a single piece of paper for my sister. I am the one who filed the fraud affidavit this morning. Thank you, Mr. Vance, the manager said. The bank is initiating legal proceedings for grand larceny and forgery. Good day. The line went dead. My mom dropped the phone onto the table. You called the cops on your own sister? My dad whispered, all his fiery anger evaporating into a sickening realization. She stole my identity to secure a $94,000 loan, Dad? I said, my voice completely steady. And the two of you just physically assaulted me to protect a thief. Chloe burst into tears, not out of remorse, but out of pure terror. Mom, you promised they wouldn't find out. You said we could just force him to pay it back before the bank checked, my dad gasped, looking between my mom and Chloe. You knew? You knew she forged his signature? I didn't stay to watch the rest of their house of cards collapse. I walked upstairs, grabbed the duffel bag I had already packed and left by the door before I even arrived today, and walked back down. As I reached the front door, my mom tried to grab my arm, her face twisted in a pathetic plea. Wait, David, we can talk about this. We're family. I pulled my arm away, looking at her, then at my dad, and finally at Chloe. You told me to get out, I said to my dad. Don't worry, I'm leaving. But you might want to save that spare bedroom for Chloe. She's going to need a place to stay after the arraignment. I walked out, slammed the door behind me, and for the first time in my life I could finally breathe.